Hello there and welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday. Today we're going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to do a bit of a warm up because I haven't painted with my watercolors for a while. And so I'm just going to do a doodle that I'm going to paint in. I have my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors and my black velvet silver brushes available. I'm using my little Arteza sketchbook. So this is basically sketchbook play again, the video today. And I'm just playing. I also have a dot card of Daniel Smith paints there that I thought I might use some of if I feel like it. So if you feel like joining me to have some fun, I'm using a Micron pen, which is waterproof, and I'm just going to scribble, leaving some largish spaces, which I then plan to just fill with watercolors and hope for the best and see what I land up with. I just want to get my hand in again and start feeling the paint on the paper and enjoying myself. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'm wetting my brush, trying to become organized, and going to use some of what I've got on this palette that's at the top of my little tin that I use. This is actually a core tin that I use for my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors. I have them in tubes and I just squeeze that out into these little half pans. And so basically I'm just going to paint. I will put some music on and zoom in a bit, and I hope that you'll join me, and I'll chat again later when I do something further. This is so much fun and so super relaxing to do. I don't paint quickly, I never have, but I'm just enjoying myself. And it's funny, you know, when you don't paint for a little while, even a week, the control for me, my brush control goes a little bit. So I find doing an exercise like this is very rewarding because it doesn't really matter if it doesn't work out perfectly. But it reminds me of things like water control and how to feel where the brush is going and things like that. But it gives me the joy of putting color on paper, which is something that I find so super relaxing and so pleasing to do. It's just really, really fun for me to do. I'm going to add some more music for you and speed the rest of this little pattern up so that let me know in the comments if you would prefer me to leave it real time, which I'm very, very happy to do, or if you just find it boring. I'm never quite sure. I don't get a lot of comments from people, so I find it very hard to judge what I should and shouldn't do. So I'm trying to use colors that kind of go together so that if the one bleeds into the other, it's not going to be a big problem. So I'm going with this purple, but it's already watered down quite a lot, so I'm just adding some more from my Winsor & Newton. Well, now I need that paint to dry, so I'm going to paint some little black-eyed Susan flowers on the left-hand side. I'm going to start those, and then while part of that is drying, I'm going to go back and finish my little exercise. So once again, I'll zoom in so that you can see more easily. And first, I have very lightly drawn in pencil the flowers, just as I have some guide. The thing is, when I erase them, I can hardly see what I've done. But what I want to do first is just to wet the center of the little flowers so that I can use that wet on wet technique and just drop some brown into the center so that it is not a hard center, that it kind of looks soft. So I'm using a burnt umber, and I'm just going to drop that in around the center. I might have too much water there, but it's doing its thing quite nicely. Then I need to put clear water on the other two as well, and then just leave those to dry. So I'm just rinsing my brush and trying to do a neat center of just clear water, and then I'm going to drop the brown in again. I don't want to soak the paper with water. I want it just to be nice and damp, and I must say this paper isn't great. It's a cellulose paper, so it's not 100% cotton, so it's not perfect. So I'm going to wet both flower centers, and hopefully some of the one on top will have soaked in a bit before I drop the brown in. I hope that works. It's always hard working on see-through, as it were, because my lighting's not fabulous. So now I'm just going to drop the brown in and just going around the center, but it's not moving quite as I had hoped it would. I think it's already dried too much. Let me try this one. It's moving a bit more. Just see how that goes. Just decided to fill this one up because it didn't look quite the way I wanted it to. I must say I'm having such a lot of fun painting here. It's just so relaxing and such easy exercises. I do hope you'll join me and also try something like this, and let me know if you have. I sort of sometimes think about opening a Facebook group for my watercolor and my glue booking. I thought it'd be nice for the community to have a place to chat. I'm not sure if any of you ever go on Facebook anymore, though. I must say I don't go on very often. So now while the centers are drying, I'm using my very favorite opera pink. I just love the opera pink. It's so bright and gorgeous. And I'm doing some more of this little pattern. And this time I'm using a very tiny brush. It's a size 2 brush, just because this looks like it's just a very small area and I didn't want to go out the lines. The top of this thing makes me think a bit of Minnie Mouse ears, Mickey Mouse ears. I could draw a little face in there, I reckon, but I won't. Just going to make it colors. See, there's opera pink on here as well. I've got it in my little half pans, but I might as well finish the dot card. I love buying dot cards. I love trying out the different paints, but then they tend to sit on the side, so I decided to use it a little bit. This is the size 2 still, and it's nice for going around the edges, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't move over to the bigger size paintbrush. I do start to get slightly impatient, but as you're going from one side to the other, Like, I don't really want to reactivate the orange paint with this pink. It's not a train smash if I do, but I'd prefer not to. As you can see, if you're not used to watercolor painting, I always go back to that little bead of water and paint from there. That little bead of paint, you can see it, sits there, and it's a good place to start again, but I just want to kind of join these up in the middle, so I'm going to start at the other side now and try to move, but you can see again the little bead of paint, and that's the bit that moves if you're doing larger areas. So I'm just going to add water and add here. I could dab my paintbrush off, but this is quite a large area that I want to fill with a wash of this paint, so I'm not dabbing it off all that much, because it's also a very small brush, so it's not holding that much water and that much paint. But I love the color. Isn't it pretty? Such a pretty color. I always love the pinks and the reds. Always used to go for the blues. But these days I seem to go for the warm colors, much more than the cool colors. I'm not sure why, but they've just become my preference lately. Well, we've more or less finished this little pattern, and I really enjoyed painting it. And now I'm going to go on to my Black-Eyed Susan flowers and do them. And I'm just going to basically paint the simple leaf. I'm using, this is Windsor yellow. It's a nice bright yellow paint. And I'm just using the technique of putting the point of the brush down, point, press, lift, point, press, lift, and you get a little petal or a leaf. That one's not big enough, but I am thinking I need to actually go opposite. It's always better to try and balance out your flower like that. Go over that and then fill them in between. Simple little little flower. Almost like a sunflower in a way, but just a simple flower, which I'm enjoying. And turning my book around, I do find it easier to paint in one direction more than, I find it very hard moving my brush. So I'm going to do the other two flowers. Sorry, I saw I was busy going off camera, so I've just made sure I'm back on camera and going to get going with the other two. This is such a light lemon color that even the very pale pencil lines are showing through. So I just want to quickly, I'm using my kneadable eraser to erase what's left of here, if I can, a little bit more. And then I'll continue. So again, it's just point down, press and lift. Just decided to zoom in a bit so that you can see more easily. So sometimes I do the two if the shape I got wasn't quite right. So I'm doing 4, like 12, 6, 3 and 9, and then filling in the gaps to try and get the distribution of the petals more evenly. And then I can fill in any extras that might need filling in. And as usual, I'm turning my book around and around. It's my art. I can do it if I want to. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but it's the way I do it. It's just adding some more pigment, and I'm adding a couple more petals in the gaps. They do look a little bit like kids' drawings, but I don't care because I enjoy doing them. So they don't actually look like black-eyed Susans. They look like a chrysanthemum, like a single chrysanthemum or azalea in a way. But there we go. And now the last one. So I finished the last one off camera, and now I'm going to just add a little bit of orange. The paint is not completely dry yet, but it's not wet enough for these to bleed into each other. But what I'm going to do is I'm just putting these dots of orange around here, and then I'm going to rinse my brush, not wet it, rinse my brush out and dry it off on my paper towel and just move the paint down. So just drying it off, and then I'm just going to move that paint down a little bit so that it looks. So as you can see, I dried the brush off quite well because you don't want to put too much water on there because that will push the pigment all in the wrong direction. But so that's as a way to kind of blend the paint in. I hope that makes sense to you. And then I've got to get onto the stems and the leaves, which are always my downfall. I always feel like I mess up my paintings when I do that. I don't know, I really struggle with the stems and the leaves. I think it's time for me to do another Skillshare class and follow what the teacher says. And then hopefully get better at that. I'm getting some of the other watercolor techniques a lot better than I used to, I think. Let me know what you think. But I feel like that's improving. But my stems and leaves, as you'll probably no doubt see in a minute or two, kind of let me down. So I'm using an olive green, just Winsor Newton olive green. I have not mixed any paints or anything. Just going to use my size 2 brush though, so that I can get a nice thin stem. I was first having a look to see what I've got on my dot card, but there wasn't a nice green on there, so I've chosen the Winsor & Newton olive green. And we're going to just put some into the little palette and hopefully not mess up too terribly. But I think it is a bit of a mess at the end. This one, I try to look to where the center of the flower is, but you see again, I wish I'd curved this more. Oh, I just don't get them done nicely. Just hesitate, anxiety, tension, stress, can't do it. Okay, that one looks all right, but now what do I do with this? Help! I just, oh dear, where? Yeah, you see, that's not right. You're never going to get a stem that does that. And now I've put too much water down. Ugh. Not great. I've gone over it. Think maybe I should have left it. Anyway, let's put a little leaf up here. See what happens. And now I want to make a big leaf at the bottom. It's just going to be a random leaf that doesn't belong to any particular flower, because I feel like I need to redeem myself somehow or other. Just going to make it a nice shape. Get a nice point. That's a nice leaf. That's a nice leaf. I like that one. And I think maybe one more leaf. There we are. Almost feel as if I could have done these leaves a bit bigger. Still, there we are. It is what it is. And just going over that a little bit and darkening it up. Maybe making a teeny tiny leaf here. And let me just zoom in. And that's more or less, I think, what we've got. I might just do a little bit more, but I think not. I think I'm going to just try and add one more leaf here, just so that it's a bit more balanced. I don't know, it's not my best, but it's not my worst. And the thing is, it was a lot of fun painting it. I had a good time. I hope you had a good time joining me. And join me again next week for some more sketchbook play or whatever I decide to do with my watercolors on Wednesday. I'd like to say bye-bye and thanks so much for spending time with me. And I hope that you have a wonderful and creative week. Bye-bye now.